Thanks for tuning in to another edition of Jets FM on the OFN as we talk, well, you guessed it, New York Jets football. And we're actually pretty stoked because we get the opportunity to talk to Ryan Dunleavy, who's part of the Our Lads Football Network, live from Florham Park, New Jersey, where the New York Jets training camp following their first preseason game, and a lot to talk about there, including a couple of headlines just popped off over the last several hours, which we'll get into as well. Ryan, thanks for talking to us live from training camp.
What's up, Greg? How are you?
I'm doing good. We're going to be doing our NFL show starting on Thursday, so we're back into the swing of things. We haven't talked football for a couple of months. So
Yeah. We were hoping to do some off-season things, but the off-season in the NFL gets away from you.
Yeah, well, there's a lot to talk about, and we will have a lot to talk about starting on Thursday when we start breaking down the NFC and the offseason, and every team will do the same thing with the AFC next week. But we have you on here to talk New York Jets football, and we wanted to have you on because, again, you've been covering the Jets for the New York Post down at training camp. So I tell you what, first let's talk about just the quick headlines that came out. Joe Walton, 85, passed away. He was more of, because I'm older than you are, and I grew up during the time that Joe Walton was the head coach. And that was the sack exchange years. Those were the Ken O'Brien, Wesley Walker, Mickey Schuler years. Those were good years. Believe it or not, when you compare them, especially to what's happened the last 10 years, those were good years. You know, they went to the AFC Championship game when Walton was the offensive coordinator. We all know the disaster in Miami in that one. But they had some pretty good moments under Walton. The worst, of course, was almost their best when they lost the overtime game to Cleveland, when they had the big lead late and couldn't, or they would have been in the AFC Championship game. So there were some really good moments, and I look back actually at fond memories of Joe Walton. I think considering the head coaches that the Jets have had, I think Joe Walton ranks up there.
It's funny how that happens, not just with the Jets, but not just in the NFL, but with teams over time. You fire somebody who had a pretty good 6 or 7 year run, and then you get a bunch of guys who don't give you that same 6 or 7 year run, and suddenly you look more fondly upon the devil you knew was better than the devil you didn't.
Yeah, because he was highly criticized, as you would imagine, being a head coach of the Jets. There weren't all rosy years, that's for sure. There were losing years. So, he was a highly criticized coach. But, when you do look back, he was a pretty decent coach for this organization. Just recently, and one more thing regarding the sack exchange, because I like to throw this out there several times a year. I still think I will always, until this gets rectified, and I think it will at some point, maybe when he's dead, but Joe Clucko, until he's in the Hall of Fame's a joke. Just is. Okay, so let's get to the 2021 roster news that kind of surprised me. The Jets just waived their kicker, Chris Naggar. That surprised me because all you hear are good things from Brant Boyer about Chris Naggar, and everything's going great. I mean, what? Did they waive him because he missed a 53-yard field goal? I don't think so. They must have their eyes set on somebody. There were 3 kickers that I talked about in my preseason reports, and here they are. Tell me what you think about this, Ryan. Austin Siebert, who I think is going to lose the job to Evan McPherson in Cincinnati, who was drafted this year. Eddie Pinheiro, who's not going to win the job against Rodrigo Blankenship with the Colts, who was out last year because of an injury. And Jose Borregales, who was one of the top kickers coming out this year, surprisingly decided to sign with Tampa Bay. Ryan Suckup was like God for the Bucs last year. They signed him just recently, so I don't think he's going anywhere. Those are the 3 kickers that I think the Jets might want to take a look at.
I'll give you another guy just because I split my time between the Giants and the Jets. There's a guy on the Giants, Ryan Santoso, who is an NFL kicker. He won't be on the Giants because they have Graham Gano signed to a long-term extension coming off a great year.
Okay.
But Ryan Santoso belongs as an NFL kicker. I mean, the funny thing about Ryan Santoso is, I'll probably quote this wrong, but he's about 6'5", 260. He looks like a linebacker, and he has a leg. I mean, I saw him in practice last week over at the Giants with a defense, not with nobody standing there, with the rush of 11 guys, drilled two 65-yard field goals.
Really?
So he's an NFL kicker. He can handle kickoffs. He can punt in an emergency, but he's a place kicker. He kicked a little bit in the second half, I think, of the Giant. Did some kickoffs in the preseason opener against the Jets. I wouldn't be surprised if that's a guy the Jets have their eye on. But yeah, long story short is Matt Amendola is the only kicker here in training camp. I don't think he'll be the week 1 kicker for the Jets. I think kicker's a place you can get your kicker September 6th or 7th after every team makes their cuts and you see who shakes free. It's not like they have to learn a playbook.
Where did Santoso go to college?
Yeah, you're killing me.
Because I haven't heard of. Usually I know who these guys are. But when you're talking about a guy who's 260, I probably know who he is. I just can't, because usually those guys are noticeable in college.
He sure is. Minnesota.
Minnesota. Wow. Okay. Interesting. I'll have to do some research on that. But hey, you might be right, because I think the Jets waived Matt Cole, and then I just saw him on the Giant special teams on Saturday night. I was like, what? That was quick. It happens because it makes a lot of sense because they're right next to each other. So, all right, we'll keep an eye on that. Now, the game itself, obviously everybody's going to talk about Zach Wilson. In all, I think after what we've seen or heard of recently, heading up into the preseason game, it was a win. It's interesting how the summer has gone and camp has gone and the preseason game has gone. It's like this kind of up and down, which is exactly what you expect from a rookie season. It's like, the sky's falling. He's going to be the next Joe Namath. The sky's falling. He's going to be the next Joe Namath. It just seems to change every 2 weeks.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that's what you expect from a rookie quarterback, Greg. You know how this goes. There's certainly been enough of them in Jets fandom. Mark Sanchez, Sam Darnold, Geno Smith, right? You know how this goes. Every day he's evaluated every day. We sit here on the sideline and keep his practice stats. He was 7 of 11 today, in case you're wondering. Threw an interception in practice over Denzel Mims' head and threw an interception in the red zone. So not a great day for Zach Wilson, but I thought he looked pretty good against the Giants. And really, obviously, he said something last week, Wilson. I don't know if you mentioned it on your show. I thought was fascinating. He said he makes throws in practice that he doesn't make in the games. He uses practice as a, can I fit this ball into that tight window? And he'll throw a pass that he wouldn't throw in a game. In a game, he'd check it down, but in practice, he wants to know what he can get away with. That helps speed up his learning curve. I thought that was fascinating. I'm not sure I've ever heard a rookie yet say that. Daniel Jones looked perplexed when I asked him if he does that. So I think most guys probably say practice has to be like a game. I'm going to do everything the same. Zach Wilson does not.
It's great that you said that, because I've never heard that myself, but it makes a lot of sense whenever you evaluate players. Sometimes they get over evaluated in practice. Sometimes players are better players during the game than they look in practice, and maybe that's part of it. Maybe there's a whole different mindset, or maybe, like Zach said, they're trying things out. They don't look as good. Or also, I think, which could be happening too, and I think it's going to be good for the Jets, is I actually think the Jets defense is going to be really good this year. And I think this is great that he gets to go up against a pretty good defense every day.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You heard what C.J. Mosley said after the game. No more same old Jets. If you think that, you're in for a surprise this year. And look, I mean, I've covered, I don't know now, 5 college football training camps and 4 NFL training camps, and I've never seen a player dominate the competition in practice the way I've seen Carl Lawson dominate these training camp practices. I mean, it's unbelievable. He could be a running back. That's how often he's in the backfield. He might one of these times he's going to get a handoff, because he's literally, it's unbelievable. I don't know if Joe Klecko had the Jets sack record for practice, Carl Lawson has already broken it.
Okay. Well, and again, same thing. I think that's going to be good for Mekhi Becton's ability when he goes up against the best pass rushers in the game, to know that, this is one of the best, and I've got to learn, and he's only going to get better. And that's the thing about competition. That is one of the things I think people miss when they talk about competition. It's not just about injuries, because we have a player that can come up and fill the role. It's about the competition that goes on during practices. That's what makes the competition makes everybody better.
Yeah, so absolutely.
Okay. By the way, Bryce Huff had a couple of sacks in the game. He's been a revelation so far from what as far as the coaching staff has talked about, and he definitely demonstrated that. One against the starters and then one against the backups. But if the Jets can find a couple of guys like that to help them in their pass rush game, that's going to be a big deal.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, the pass rush, I think that Quinton Williams was back at practice today. We're kind of burying the lead of practice. Quinton Williams was back doing individual drills, not team drills. He could get some individual drills against Green Bay this week, which would be pretty exciting. The Post will have Brian Costello out on site to watch that, but Williams won't play in the game against the Packers. But my point is the Jets' front seven has a chance to be really, really good.
Yeah. And it's interesting because everybody's still talking about that young secondary. When I did my breakdown of the positions, I did some research, and I looked at what Robert Saleh dealt with as a defensive coordinator with San Francisco, and I saw a lot of similarities. It wasn't until they signed Richard Sherman in year 2 or year 3, which was year 3, of course, was the Super Bowl year that Saleh was there, that they actually add a veteran, a top tier type of corner. And I think that's what Robert Saleh, and you know how it is. If an assistant coach, he sees how things were done when he was at another place, he goes to a new place, he goes, hey, my defense is about the front seven first in my defense. I have got to attack the opposition, and my DBs, I think he looks at it as these are young guys. There's a lot of talent back there. There's a lot of depth. I got to mold these guys up. And I think my first goal is to make sure the talent is in the front seven first. And I think I could work with a lot of these young secondary DBs later. And if he could just find, a diamond in the rough here or there, the way he did in San Francisco, I think the defense will work just fine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So. No, I totally agree with you. I think the defense should be fine. The Jets have a much better roster. And they're mostly healthy. They have a much better roster. The defensive front seven should be good. They have offensive playmakers. The question is the rookie quarterback and the really young quarterbacks. I mean, just like I think the Giants season could be blown up by the offensive line, I think the Jets season has the potential to be promising, but could be blown up by the secondary.
Yeah, and that's again, we'll find out whether or not that. And again, but let's also keep in mind, it wasn't like San Francisco's defense that first year was anything like the San Francisco defense 2 years later. So yeah. I'm just making the point is that he worked with young, inexperienced guys the first year. That did not mean that it was a success the first year. Elijah Moore, how's he looking? Or is he even practicing just yet?
He's not. He's not going to practice at all this week. He's not going to play against Green Bay. Robert Saleh said he's not worried about week 1, and really I guess that's all that matters because, Moore was sensational in training camp up until he hurt his quad. So he's probably got all the work he needs in on the field. Playbook-wise, he seems like the kind of person who's not going to let an injury deter him from learning what he needs to learn off the field. So as long as he's ready for week 1, look, he was as good a rookie receiver as I've seen in my 4 years come in and make an immediate impact. I didn't see this with Mims last year. I'm not seeing it with Kadarius Toney down the street with the Giants. For a rookie receiver, he's come in and really, really been sharp.
Yeah, I don't expect we're going to see him again until week 1. So that would be my guess.
Yep.
All right. Before I let you go, are there any players that you have noticed at camp in a good way? Rookies, under the radar guys that aren't talked about very much.
I think LaMichael Pirines had a nice camp as a powerful runner. A lot of people talk about Michael Carter, but I think Tevin Coleman has a chance, might have a little something left in the tank, so the Jets might have a nice running back combination there. Other guys who have stood out, Sherrod Niesman, I think, is a guy. The Jets obviously have their 2 safeties. locked in with LaMarcus Joyner and Marcus May, but they're going to need really good safety play with these young corners. And Sherrod Niesman, the 6-year pro, who I'll tell you I had never even heard of before the Jets signed him in June, and that could be a sneaky good addition. He's kind of locked up that number 3 safety. He had a pick today off of Wilson, and Mims has really come on in the last week. Everybody saw it with his hard run after the catch in the preseason game against the Giants, but that's not an accident. I think he's had a really good last 5 or so practices.
All right, and other than that, have you noticed anything regarding, like, I will say this in a negative way, and this is not, I heard bad news regarding Jabari Zuniga, that he's injured again. I don't know.
Practice.
What's that?
I have not even seen him.
Look, with the rookie 6th rounder Marshall, who came on and played pretty well in the preseason game, and I did not have Marshall making the final roster. I thought Marshall was probably going to have to be a practice squad guy. Zuniga was going to be one of the last guys. I don't even know if Zuniga is going to be here, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, I honestly, I haven't even seen him at practice. I guess he could end up on PUP, or he could end up, on the practice squad or something. I don't think he's somebody who other teams are going to be lining up to claim.
Yeah. And again, he was a pretty high draft pick last year.
And I think the same thing goes for Chuma Edoga. I think that's another. He's a McCagnon draft pick, but I think he's another draft pick who could be in trouble here.
Yeah, I agree, absolutely. Especially the injuries. When you're a bubble guy heading into training camp, you cannot get injured.
Yeah.
That's just the kiss of death. Ryan, I appreciate it. We'll talk again on Thursday when we talk NFL, and again, we'll talk some NFC football.
Sounds good, Greg. Thanks for having me.